How is it going, my dudes? Welcome back to another video. So for today, we're going to take a look at the new patch 2.1.0 details. It is going to be going on live on 1st of March. So do take note of that, because there's a lot of things that I will need you guys to prepare before the 1st of March, before the patch actually hits. And I'll explain a little bit more towards the end of the video. So just to summarize everything for you guys, for people who just want a quick glimpse of what this patch is about, basically one unit is going to be hyper buffed, and that's going to be Falken. He's going to be super crucial and basically a staple for every single ritual miracles. Secondly, there is going to be a major nerf to Fafnir. Fafnir is going to be extremely easy right now, or rather it's going to be a lot easier to manage Fafnir, and I'll explain the strategy on how to deal with Fafnir coming into the patch. There are a lot of other changes as well, so like stamina rework and new content. So let's get on with the video, right? So we start off with the new features. So these are the new content, so to speak. So we have launched a new story stage. Basically, there is a new third difficulty called the Purgatory. So a new difficulty means newer EXP farming stages. So we're probably going to get a little bit better efficiency on our EXP runs. But this may not be the case because there is going to be a stamina rework, which is going to suck a little bit, but we will have to see about that. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. Number 3, right? Let's take a look at number 3 here. Esper Arena is finally going to be open. So this is basically just your real-time arena. You play with other people live. And number 4, there is going to be a new event. It's just basically a sign-in rewards event. Usually their rewards are very good. Let's move on to adjustments and optimizations. And we are going to start off with Fafnir. So ability 1 changes. Okay, so previously, if Fafnir is unaffected by any debuffs, he actually has a 50% chance to stun your entire team, which really sucks. But the new change is if he is buffed, okay, as long as he is buffed, he would then have a 50% chance to stun every single one of your teammates. And ability 3 changes. Okay, so previously, if he is not debuffed, he would then reduce your HP ceiling of whoever last hit him, right? But now similarly, if he is buffed, then he would then land this minus 25% HP cap effect on your Esper. But then this part confuses me a little bit because he also has this shield effect that works as a buff. So if he applies a shield on himself before using his third skill, then wouldn't it mean that it's just a guaranteed 25% HP ceiling reduction all the time? But in my opinion, the main change over here is he no longer grants himself immunity for 2 turns. This is huge. So he no longer buffs himself apart from his Anvari's treasure, which means that the only other way that he can get buffs is via his follower. So if we take a look at his followers, let's take a look at Blessing Tablet over here. Dispels all debuffs from the boss or grants immunity for 2 turns if the boss does not have debuffs. You can essentially permanently remove all kinds of buffing on the boss as long as you are constantly putting him on debuffs. So as long as you can drop a lot of debuffs on Fafnir, he will never be immune. He will never grant himself immunity. This will greatly reduce the difficulty of Fafnir because now he can be defense broken, he can be bled, right? He can be poisoned as well. And more importantly, Falken will be very effective on Fafnir. And finally, other changes, we have generally reduced Fafnir's speed across all difficulties because speed is king in Fafnir. And reducing Fafnir's speed will then multiplicatively improve your team's speed against him, which makes things a lot easier as well. So the new strategy to dealing with Fafnir after the patch is to just simply drop a lot of debuffs, and some units that are really good at dropping a ton of debuffs are units like Louis, because he's going to drop a lot of searing debuffs and a lot of bleeds on the boss. Falken is going to be an exceptionally good choice as well. And Gabrielle is still going to be super powerful. She's going to land defense breaks, she's going to land attack debuffs, and grant your team immunity at the same time, so she's going to be super strong in Fafnir. But we are going to skip some of these stuff because I think it's not very important. And let's take a look at point number 6, story changes. Okay, so we have reduced the EXP drops in practice stages and increased the amount of experiment drops. So basically, previously experiments were called channelers, so they're just going to change the name up a little bit. So they are going to nerf EXP stages yet again, twice in a row in 2 consecutive patches. I'm not sure why they're going to do that, but do take note that now EXP grinding is going to be severely nerfed. I would assume that this is a nerf, even though they are going to make things equal, so to speak, by increasing the experiment drops. But using experiments does cost E-cash, and right now, instead of just easily grinding our EXP through these EXP stages, we now need to spend a little bit more E-cash to use experiments to make up for the EXP loss. And moving on to item number 7, instance changes. We have significantly increased the drop rate for 6-star relics in the Ritual Miracle on difficulties 9 and 10, the latter being 50%. So for level 10 difficulty in Ritual Miracles, the drop rate for 6-star relics are going to go up from like 0.0001% to 0.000015%. Also, they have increased the difficulty of Ritual and Sonic Miracles. I think this is a needed buff to the boss. I mean, it is kind of like a nerf in terms of like the player's perspective, but I feel like currently the bosses are way too easy. You can just drop the bosses like sub-mini, right? Especially for Chronos. If your team is slightly decent, you can finish the boss in just like 50 seconds. So there is definitely some balancing to be done, and I think this is kind of like a good step forward, especially since, you know, they're making the bosses a little bit harder, but they're increasing the drop rates for the boss, so I think it kind of evens out in the end. And item number 8, this is so important but also so scummy, I think. So stamina changes. The system will now give more stamina after leveling our account. This is not important. Not sure why I read that, but we have adjusted the cost to purchase stamina. So basically, a stamina refills from 60 to 100 Nexus crystals. That's a 60% increase in the cost in total. So from 600 per daily refill, right? So you have up to 10 refills per day, which previously cost 600 Nexus crystals. Now it's going to cost you 960 Nexus crystals. And honestly, 1000 Nexus crystals, about give and take 40, right? It's half a multi, which means that if you refill for 2 days worth of stamina, you're actually foregoing one entire multi-pool. That is insane. I think probably a lot of players are not going to refill from here on. It's going to be way too expensive in my opinion. And you can pause the video over here to take a look at item number 9, Daily Quest Reward Updates. I'm not going to talk too much about it. It is also a slight nerf. I'm not sure why they are doing that. But item number 10, this is quite good. Bag optimization. So relics can now be enhanced, sold, shared directly from your bag. Previously, it requires you to go to your Esper page, go to the relic page, then go click on replace relic, then click the settings button, and then click the relic market. And it's way too many buttons just to take a look at your relics. So they are finally going to improve on the quality of life over here, which is nice. So Lilith Games is really well known for quality of life improvements. They are constantly listening to the player's perspective on the game. So I think they are like testing exactly how far they can go before players get unhappy. So yes, back optimizations, this is going to make players happy. And item number 12, there is going to be improvements to the world chat system. So basically now, depending on the language settings of your game, you're going to meet other players are also using. So if your language is in English, you're going to meet other players whose language is in English. If your language is set to Chinese, then you're going to meet other players whose language is set to Chinese. Which is good or bad, because I know some Vietnamese players and some French players who would rather use their own native language to play the game, but they would like to communicate in English as well. So there's going to be a little bit of a problem for, I think, some players. But in a general case, for most players, this is going to be a good change. Item number 15, right, expedition changes. So we have reduced the amount of stamina required to go on expeditions, but do take note that now on a daily basis, you're only getting 3 expedition warrants. You're no longer going to get 4 expedition warrants because they're nerfing the 4th expedition warrant from the daily quest. So if you do complete your daily quest, you're not going to get your 4th expedition warrant anymore. So do take note of that. You only have 3 tries per day right now, which is basically undoing whatever that they just did in the previous patch. And probably the final more important update is item number 17. So we have adjusted one of the 3 guaranteed Espers drawn in the newbie pool. So previously we had Biondina. She is more like an endgame unit, not so much for new players. But now they're replacing Biondina with Lewis, which is, I think, a very good move, because Lewis is very effective in many different content and is definitely very helpful for new players. But let's move on to the good stuff, right? So the Esper balance changes. Number 1, Falken. I like how they put this audio at the top, because Falken really needed a lot of buff. Previously, he was quite unusable, but now he's honestly very, very OP. I would think that his change right now, just even though it's just such a slight change, puts him at such a great advantage in all kinds of ritual miracles. So even Chronos, APAP, and Fafnir. So to help you understand why he's so good right now, ability 2. So before the caster's attacks, mark the target with Eye of Horrors for 1 turn, and attacks by the enemies on Falken would then be counter-attacked. And now, instead of the enemies only attacking Falken to be counter-attacked, as long as the enemy has that debuff, the Eye of Horrors debuff, if he attacks any of your teammate will counter-attack. This is huge, especially since in Ritual Miracles, all the enemies are landing AoE attacks. So even the followers, right, some of the followers actually land AoE attacks as well. If that's the case, your entire team would then counter-attack, which means that Falken is actually a very useful tool to run a very safe team and also a very fast team. And especially true for Fafnir, because he also grants himself a shield, right? After you reduce one of his HP bars to 0, he will then grant himself a shield, and then he will land an AoE attack on everyone, and that's when you all counter attack on him and possibly even deplete his entire shield right at the get-go. And this is not to forget that there are units like Hall who also follows up with an extra attack as long as your ally uses a single target attack. So most of the time, your first skill is going to be a single target attack, and if that's the case, Hall will then follow up with each and every counter attack, which I think can be quite crazy. I do not know. His follow-up attack is not very heavy hitting, right? It's only 20% of his attack. But Hall has a poison on his passive as well, so every time he counter attacks, he's gonna land a poison debuff, which could potentially make your boss run super fast. Okay, moving on, Arcana. So previously his ability was just like whatever that you're seeing here, and now he has a new line, which is the final attack steals 25% of AP, which is shared among your entire team. So 25% AP, if you have 5 standing members, each of you will then receive 5% AP. I honestly expected the change for Arcana to be more like an AoE strip, so he removes more buffs on the enemy lineup. I don't know, I mean, I feel like this game needs more Dispeller, so there is that. Number 3, Louis. So there's quite a lot of change over here, but basically it's just he now has more flexibility in his kit, and he doesn't actually damage himself that much, and he also grants himself a crit rate buff. Basically, he becomes a very, very new player friendly character. And moving on to Suhua, for ability 2, previously if your ally has less than 50% HP, you would then double the healing amount that you use with ability 2, and you also grant an additional 2 turns of recovery. But right now it's a little bit different. She is still equally good. I would still say that she's still very relevant. Her second skill is mostly used for her invincibility and just a slight heal. It's not so important that the heal needs to be that big, I think. And her main capturing point is also her skill 3, not really her skill 2. So all is good. And Gabrielle, no changes. Okay, so as long as you are in Ascension level 3, there is absolutely no changes done. I somehow expected them to nerf her base speed because her base speed is at 106, which is way too high, I think. Okay, that's just my personal opinion. And of course, there are some new gift packs, which is basically the pay-to-win stuff. Some bug fixes, no big deal, and of course the preview of new content in the following update. So not in this update, okay? So there's going to be 3 new Espers in the next update, and also a new Esper probability up and other events, as well as an all new relic crafting system. So here's what I'm doing right now. So right now I'm actually using all my gems, right? All my Nexus crystals for refills. Why am I using those refills for? I'm not using it on ritual runs, I'm actually using it on EXP runs because they're going to nerf EXP stages in a little bit. So I'm definitely throwing all my stamina right now. Next time stamina refills is going to be too expensive for me, especially if you're going to be using it to grind EXP. It's going to be way too expensive. I wouldn't recommend it anymore. I'm not sure how we are going to actually level up units in the future. But yeah, so I'm using my stamina right now to level up my Falken to build him before the patch drops and probably have him ready by then. But you guys may choose to save your Nexus crystals because there is going to be a Esper probability up event. So this is going to be a first time, I think, that they are going to raise the probability in the banner. It's probably going to be like for like new units anyway. But I would still recommend you guys to save a little bit of Nexus crystals if you are hoping to summon. So don't summon right now, definitely not right now. And that is it for the patch notes for 2.1.0. It is a very long list and I didn't even cover everything because of the time. But there you go, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, it really helps the channel. This has been free to play by the way, and as always, I will see you in the next video.